Just when you think the Kia EV6 couldn't get any faster, Kia went on and released the GT version of the Kia EV6 right here in this black version. And this is very fast. You're talking 577 horsepower or 585 brake horsepower. You're talking 0 to 62 in around 3.6 seconds or so. It's super fast. They've souped it up. But before we get into all the performance bits, and which is what this is all about really, let's talk about the subtle changes that they've done in comparison to the standard EV6. We look at the car, it's a long car, essentially. It's a big car. It's a quite heavy car as well. You're talking 2.2 tons in weight. And in terms of the wheelbase itself, it's about 2.9 meters wheelbase, and it's longer in terms of the overall length of the car. But we look at the front here, they've changed such things like, we look down here, we've got these vertical lines rather than horizontal, which you have on the standard EV6. And then it's just slightly updated bumper, so it looks really nice. You got dual LED headlights on the front, so it's kind of similar to what we've seen on the EV6. Even the lights here of vertical as well. And then over on the side, the story continues. Is very similar, as I said, 2.9 meters wheelbase. We have pop-out door handles, which sits flush once you close the door, helps with the drag coefficient of the car. And then we get this big mirror here on the side with which folds as well, auto dim in, and you got your blind spot warning on there as well. So the story continues there in terms of what we've seen already on the EV6. Where it stands out for the GT edition though is the fact that we have these big 21-inch alloys as standard, low profile Pro Sports 4S tires on them as well. This wheels looks amazing. They look very sporty, and we get this lime green or acid green big brake calipers on them as well. Obviously, if you're going to be in those kind of speeds in this, you need the big brakes as well to be able to handle those kind of speeds. Over on the back, we get the spoiler on the top there. We've got the shark fin or dolphin, whatever, the antenna on the back on top there. We've got the long brake light bar, LED light bar as well, EV6. Got the GT badge on that side there. And then subtle changes again on the diffuser here. We've got this sporty diffuser here, which looks pretty cool. I kind of like that. And then again, vertical reflectors on the back as well, compared to what we've seen on the standard EV6. We have a big boot space in here. So if I just open this up. And because we have that extra powerful motor on the back as well, we get 10 litres less of boot space compared to what we have in the standard EV6. But nonetheless, this is still a very big space here. We've got big opening space. It's a family car at the end of the day, so it's very practical in that sense. We even get a tiny little space here to store something. Just about fit the charging cable there, kind of pushes it up a bit, so it's not really good for that, to be honest. And then we got the seat to the back, which you can fold as well for more space. You got 60-40 split for the space with a little tiny opening gap, which we'll have a look when we sit in the back seat as well. And for charging, this supports 350 kilowatts charging capacity, which means you can charge this up very quickly, which is very good if you can find one of those and you can afford to pay the price of fast charging. But otherwise, it also has vehicle to load as well, which means you can charge other things up with this. So you can power up your caravan, for example, maybe some other things in the house. Who knows? But you can power those things up, and I love this charger indicator light as well, which lets you know how much charging you've done so far. But yeah, really good. I also like the way that it just sits subtly here, kind of just blends in. I was kind of looking around the car for a while trying to find where it was. In true Kia fashion as well, on the key you can actually use the fob to move the car in and out of tight spaces, which can be quite useful. It just never gets boring to me that you can actually do that in this day and age. So just press and hold it. It's like walking your dog. Or you can also move it backwards as well. There we go. Pretty neat. So in the back area, everything is the same as it was in the Kia EV6, although you might notice the difference in the front seat just a little bit. We'll talk about that more when we get in the front seat, but generally there's plenty of space in there. This is a very spacious car. There's plenty of room in the middle for someone to sit in the middle as well, but I love the seat finishing. We've got this acid green piping and the lining, the suede finishing here, mix of leather, looks really cool. Plenty of headroom, so there's no issues there at all. Plenty of knee room as well. It just feels very comfortable. I can sit here for a long period of time. We also get the armrest in the middle as well with two cup holders, which you can put your stuff in there. And then there's a gap here, which means you can still reach in the back to get stuff. If you forget to pick it up, maybe like your passport or something like that, you want to check something to update, you can just get in there very quickly and just fold it back up. But yeah, one thing that's missing here though for me is that panoramic sunroof. We don't get one here, and apparently in the UK you won't be able to spec that up with the GT version, which is a shame. You get heated seats for the back passengers on the left and right, not the middle, which is cool. We have 2 USB-C ports here as well to charge your devices. So I think all in all, it's very well equipped to be sat on the back for a long period of time, be comfortable, and it's just excellent. Over on the front, it's very premium here. I like the look of it, although the steering wheel for me is a bit bulky and chunky in the middle section here. It could be slimmer maybe and a bit more refined, but we do get 2 buttons on here which we'll talk about as well. We've got drive mode and that GT mode, which is what's special about the GT version here. But before I get there, we get this bucket seat, which is included in the GT version with the acid green piping all around it. Got the GT logo on there as well. It sits very comfortable in the sense that it just holds you into place, whether you're cornering or whatever, long journey, it's there. Obviously with a bucket seat like this for sports, you don't get the proper headrest. So when you put your foot down, what you get is your head sort of going all the way back and then sort of sitting like this, which can be awkward at times for long journeys. Plenty of space here though. We got some spot there to put your cup on the door cabin. We have another big space here, which almost fits my arms. So you can put stuff in there as well. There's 2 cup holders here, which you can also move the divider so you can have more space there if you want to put something else. There's another space here for wireless phone charging, which fits my big phone here, my iPhone 15 Pro Max comfortably well. We've got the gear shifter or dial rather here, your power button there, a couple of buttons for heated seats and heated steering. You get plenty of USB ports, 2 USB-Cs there, 1 for USB, 1 is just for charging only, I think. Don't quote me on that. We've got 12-volt socket there and then this big space here to store things, but if you do store anything here, it just means it will rattle around because there's nothing to really keep it secure or in place. This has support for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but weirdly enough, it's not wirelessly, so you have to keep them wired. And not only is it wired, you have to use the correct cable because if it's not compatible, this won't recognize it, it won't work. So make sure you use the right compatible cable. So these are infotainment system. So it's 12.1-inch infotainment system. And one of the things I noticed straight away though is when I power the car on, this takes a while to actually load up the infotainment system. I mean, it's worked pretty much now, but usually it does this whole like loading thing, which can be quite annoying, especially if you just want to get up and go very quickly. But other than that, yes, you get your infotainment display, 12.1-inch display, nice and big, nice and responsive as well. You might get a bit of glitch here and there, like a little bit of lag, sorry, but it still pretty much does what it needs to do, which is no issues at all. You got phone protection, like I said, it's via cable only, the right cable. What's interesting though is if you go below down here, because this is all dynamic, so this switches up depending on what you're doing. So at the moment we have our climate control here, so obviously we can change the temperature and turn things off and all that stuff. Let me power it off for now. But if you press this button here, things change again. So what this is doing is now different. What that button there, this dial here is doing is now different. You can select different things like your map, navigation, etc. And then when you press this again, that changes again to something else. It's a really good use of space, which is quite clever, I think, and it works really well. So the only issue is if you're driving and you quickly want to do stuff, sometimes you might find yourself forgetting what's what. So, but once you get used to doing it, it's pretty much straightforward, which is really nice. Let's go back up here though. So if we go home, we can see all the screens that you have, so you can scroll across and all that stuff. Couple of things though is we go to EV mode. The EV mode, EV screen just gives you all the information that you need in terms of charging, the range that's left, and you got your option there for vehicle to load as well, and settings and so on. We go into settings. We can see some of the options available. You got vehicle settings. So in vehicle settings, we'll be able to do, so your ADAS system, you'll be able to basically adjust all those things like driver convenience. But what I like about this is the way they've laid it out. So whatever you want, you can just tap it and it gives you more information and so on. You got your drive mode, which allows you to do your drive mode yourself. So you can change your drive mode and adjust the different things and the way that it performs or the characteristics on the road. You got things like active sound design. So enhanced, normal, minimize. There's no extra sound effects for going into GT mode, unfortunately. And then you got head-up display settings, which you can change things. The head-up display also has augmented reality. So it means when you're turning left and right, it will give you this pointy arrow to let you know where it's going. My issue with that though is it's only able to tell you to turn right or left. So when you're doing like cornering and stuff, it still kind of tells you to turn sharp left or right, whereas it's not really sharp left or right. Content selection is there and so on. And then your instrument cluster, you can also change what's there, the brightness, the theme, and all that stuff you can play with. In terms of safety options, you have things like forward safety and lane safety and blind spot safety, all that kind of stuff. The standard stuff that we know in the EV6, so there's nothing really here to really talk about as a new option. So you got all the system there to help you keep safe on the road. We also get the 360 camera system. So if I press this button here, we see all the camera, we can see all around the car, as you can see there. We can even do 360 here, so if we tap this, we'll be able to see the car in real time, which is pretty cool. So it's a shame that it doesn't correlate with the car color outside. It doesn't calibrate with that. It's still white here rather than the car color outside, which is black. But it works really well, so you can see where you go in and park safely as well. That's really good. And then on your instrument cluster, that's nice and visible as well, really bright, easy to see what you need to see, like your range that's left in the car. You can even see your energy recuperation levels. So you got iPedal mode, so you can go off completely. You can go level 1, level 2. You can go all the way to maximum level. And it's very, very effective in this because when you take your foot off, you can basically one pedal drive in this. For drive mode, we get sports, got normal, eco, and there's also GT mode as well. And then obviously my drive mode, which means you can tweak different things yourself, like the level of stiffness in the adaptive active dampers as well. So that's basically it when it comes to all the tech inside of here. One of the great things about this as well is when you indicate on the instrument cluster, the instrument cluster area will indicate for your blind spot. So you get cameras there that shows you exactly what's happening in your blind spot, which is pretty nifty. All right, so we're taking the EV6 GT on the road. And I think the first time I got in this car, the GT version of the EV6, the first question that popped to mind is, who is this car actually aimed at? Because it's not like the EV6 is not already practical. It's not like it's not already fast or spacious or a good looking car, do you know what I mean? So it kind of made me feel like, well, who needs all this power? Who needs the whole 577 horsepower on the road that you probably will never use, especially for what's meant to be potentially just a family car. So I don't see any family actually taking this on the road and trying to do all those things. It also has extra naughty modes, which I call it, well, naughty mode, which is like drifting. So for example, GT, you can press and hold, do a bunch of combinations of buttons on here and basically put this into drift mode, which allows you to send all the power to the back and just do some crazy stuff if you get the chance to, maybe on track or whatever. It makes it fun to have, but I don't think anyone will actually use that on day-to-day basis. You spend more than £60,000 on this actual version of the car. I don't think you'd be going that far. With that aside though, let's talk through some numbers on the EV6 GT. So we have 0 to 62, or is it 0 to 60, in 3.5 seconds, which is plenty. That's a whole lot, which is competing with some sports cars or supercars out there. I'm not going to go through them in this video. And we have 740 Newton meters of torque, especially when you stick in that GT mode. You get plenty of torque coming out of this, those electric motors on the front and the back, which are tuned and a lot more powerful. We have a top speed of around 162 miles per hour. We talked about the range and all that stuff already. But if I've missed out anything, all the numbers will also be on the screen for you guys to have a look. We have 21-inch alloys as standard on these, which honestly, it creates a lot of problems when it comes, for me anyway, when it comes to comfortability. So this is not as comfortable as you might think. It's very, very loud in terms of the road noise. You hear a lot more with that those low profile tires as well, means you feel every speed bump on the road. But what's shining through on this though, with those, with the chassis and the way that it's built, is the fact that this feels better on long journeys. So if you're going to be driving this on a long, on the motorway right now, long journey, it feels very stiff and stable and stuff like that. So it's when you start cornering and stuff, then the adaptive dampers doesn't really help that much, I don't think, even when you have in normal mode and not the sports mode. Other thing to mention is this has electric limited slip differentials on the back, which allow the power to be sent to the right places. So this helps with traction, which is really good. One thing I won't be able to do today is test that 0 to 62 number or take this on track or anything like that for my limited time with it. But what I would say is some videos I've seen of this does some crazy stuff in terms of sticking into GT mode or even like sticking this into that drift mode. You'll be able to have some fun with it. Again, it's not something that I think most families who are going to be buying this will be using. So, but it's there if you really need to. But other than that, I think in terms of the driving experience, it's really good. It handles corners very well, it's very nimble, and it feels really good to drive. Some ways it feels very clunky in terms of the weight of the car. It's a very heavy car. The battery itself, they're very heavy in the car. And also it just feels like a big car once you sit in it. On the outside, when you look at the car, you don't really notice how big this car is or how this car is going to feel until you sit in the driver's seat and you start to turn and move around and you feel the car just change and you just feel the characteristics of the car. If we switch mode here, so for example, if I stick into sports mode, you feel the car just comes alive. The instrument cluster changes to red to let you know that this is now in like that sports mode. The throttle response becomes very, very active as well. So you press it and you just goes, look at that. And then in comparison to like eco and normal, where it's still there, but it doesn't give you the same response as you would when you stick it into that sports mode. And then we get the GT mode, which turns things into very aggressive mode, traction controls off. So you have to be really careful when you drive it in that mode. Yes, we have all-wheel drive, which helps as well with stability, but that's not gonna help you if you don't know what you're doing in GT mode in this one. But I think overall, it's a very fun car to drive. It's got good range, WLTP range in terms of practicality. It's really good in that sense. Depending on what mode you're driving in though, and how you're driving it as well. You do have good level of energy recuperation, which you actually feel as well. You can one pedal drive in this. But yeah, I think overall, this car on the GT level is great to have. Around £60,000 is very expensive. So for me, I think if I was looking for the EV6 range, I probably wouldn't go for this at all. I'd go for the standard, maybe like a GT line of the EV6, not the GT, because I don't think anyone needs this level of power in the car that you're going to be driving on the UK road. Speed limits are dropping everywhere. When you're driving in London, for example, everywhere is like 20 miles per hour. So you're not going to take advantage of what this is fully capable of, whereas you'd be paying that extra amount of money. But is it enough to sway those people who are like petrol heads who want something that's really fast? I don't know. Is it enough to sway people who are still thinking of switching to EVs? That, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But I think overall, it's a good looking car. Apart from that comfortability level for me, I think it's a good looking car. It's a great car to have. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.